Hello friends. Today's video is my best attempt at offending literally everyone that watches this video because this is a touchy subject. It's as you can see a console and handheld tier list. A lot of people we're gonna have a lot of mean comments. So if you could go in the comments right now before any of that happens and just tell me how much you love me, that would be great, because this is about to go south really quickly. So full disclosure, I'm not going to do all the consoles. I'm not going to do the consoles that I'm not familiar with. You can see the list here goes like down into all this garbage, like either really old PC console thingies or just like the ZX Spectrum. Also, I'm not going to deal with the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Like, those just haven't been out for long enough. I could just put them in the S tier and be like, oh my god guys, the PS5 is so we're honest here, and we're also gonna go in the sort of chronological order. I'm doing my best. We're going front to back, so we'll start with the most recent of things, skipping obviously the new. Let's just start off with, I know that the PC came out a while ago, kind of like the original console, but I'm just gonna put the PC in S tier. I mean, like, you can play any PC game on it, you know. There's no backwards compatibility issues. I don't know. I mean, the PC is the PC, like, whatever. This is just a good starting place, all right? Now this next one, I'm immediately getting myself into hot water here. The Nintendo Switch. Now I know that this isn't done, so that's why this makes this spot a little weird. It's got the games, sort of, and it's got the hardware, sort of. What I think is great about the Switch is that it's portable. If you are purely using it as a stationary console, like plugged into your TV 100% of the time, then it's pretty weak. I don't think it has a huge selection of games that aren't already just on the PC years ago. There is a lot of excitement around porting games to the Switch, but that's purely because it's like, this would be great for the Switch because then you could take Skyrim anywhere or whatever. I don't know. I'm digging myself into a hole here. I have a Switch. I have one right here. Look. I like my Switch, but I'm gonna have to put it in the B tier because the hardware is horrible. In terms of power, it's basically like a tablet, and the Joy-Cons are garbaggio. Just so many little things that kind of bring it down from A tier to B tier. The Xbox One. This is a tough one. I can't put it in the B tier because it's not too impressive in terms of being a step up from the 360. It sort of reminds me of a more powerful 360. That's basically all it is. I could bump it down a tier just because of the crap, all the crap with its launch and the Kinect always needing to be and the always online and all that stuff. But it's not a bad console by any means. Most of this is gonna be a pretty top heavy video. This is gonna be mostly like around this area. If it topped out at A, I would probably put it at D tier, but it tops out at S, so we'll give it the C. Here's an interesting one. The PS4. This is a tough one because I've kind of thought ahead, right? I am aware of where I'm going to place some of these things. I think I'm going to put this in S tier. I think that this is the defining console for this generation. That doesn't automatically make it an S tier, but I do think that if we think about its lifespan, like, this sucker came out in 2013 and is still kicking. Most people can't find a PS5. There's not even really any games on the PS5, so people are still playing the PS4 8 years after it came out, which is just absurd. Like, that is not the case for any of these other consoles. I think the PS4 is fantastic. I think it has a lot of great games. It's good hardware for the time. It was very impressive. So we'll give it the S tier. If we feel like bringing it down later, we'll bring it down. On the other side of the spectrum, we've got the Ouya. Now, I thought about not having this one on here, but I thought it would be fun to just to actually have something in the F tier. Really, anything that comes out from Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, any console that comes out that's like a part of that big three for the last 4 generations of consoles have all been at least C tier. None of them are bad, but this was a rare like 80s 90s sort of throwback to when companies just would put out a console with very little money or planning or just foresight of what it would be or what people even want. All right, here's some more hot water. This is a tough one. And I know I just said that these companies don't really make anything below C tier, and I still think that's true with the Wii U. One, the innovation of the console I do think is cool. Two, it is kind of like a Fisher-Price toy. You look at that and you go, what? However, the idea is there. It's cool. It loses a lot of points for not being that powerful, slightly more powerful than the Wii. So we'll put this in the C tier because there was a lot of good games on the Wii U. So it sort of reminds me of the Dreamcast in that way. Like, it was a failure, but a lot of people liked it. There's a ton of defenders, and it's the same story for this next console / handheld thing, the PS Vita. It was overall a failure, but people loved it. Big fans of the PS Vita. I don't really feel comfortable rating it anywhere other than maybe like C tier because it's in a similar situation as the Wii U. But I know that some people think that the Vita is S tier. So I'm just gonna put it in the B tier to be safe. I know some people will be upset wherever I put it, but that has to be where it goes. It's competition, and that makes this that's where we get into some big trouble here. But I'm gonna put the 3DS in the A tier. This thing was prolific. It had a lot of good games. It was a huge success. It was a step up from the DS. The 3D was actually really cool if you ever experienced it. And it just kind of worked. Like, it was a good handheld system. So I think A tier is fair. The PS3. Ooh, this is where the nostalgia really starts to kick in for people. This is what, 2006? So yeah, it was a long time ago. I'm comfortable putting it in the A tier. Ton of great games, great hardware, very impressive for the time that it came out. Overall, I mean, it was just a solid system. It was the start of a lot of franchises that we have today. It had good exclusives. It had pretty much every multi-platform. The PS3 was the second console of this generation that I got. It was definitely the most impressive. But the first one that I got was the Wii. And I'm very conflicted on where to put this, because on the one hand, it had a bunch of great games that people don't really remember this or think about this. Sometimes they think, oh, the Wii, you know, Mario Kart and Wii Sports and all that stuff, but you start thinking about like Galaxy and Twilight Princess, and there was some bangers on there, but it was the start of a horrible trend that knocked the gaming industry off course by a good 3 or 5 years. Like, the whole motion control thing was just a scam. Basically, it was like selling people on this emotional argument of like, ooh, you can really feel the game and get involved and you can swing the sword. Like, no one really wants to do that unless it's VR. VR is really cool. It's just kind of a lot. It's expensive, it's impractical. That's kind of like what the Wii was going for. Like, ooh, you can really be in the game. But until we get the Wii Motion Plus, like, the actual motion controls on the Wii were pretty crap. The Xbox 360, the defining console of this generation. And I would love to put it in S tier, like I did with the PS4. But the biggest difference between the PS4 and the Xbox 360 is like a quarter of all Xbox 360s died. I'm talking of the red ring, of course. That was huge. Like, that was a really big issue. I could put it in S tier, but I feel like that would be that would be letting them off easy, like way too easy. The red ring was a bigger problem than I think a lot of people realize. Like, yes, once you got to this Xbox, I never had one. This was the third console that I got this generation. I still have my Xbox 360 somewhere over there, but I did get one of these. So I'm gonna leave it there. Ooh. PSP. This is a tough one because in terms of being a media device, it was really cool. Especially before like the iPod Touch and the iPhone. Like, you could put like movies on here, you could easily jailbreak it and just have it be your multimedia device and also play a bunch of PS1 games or whatever, Nintendo 64 games if you wanted to. Like, this thing was pretty awesome. In terms of like it being just a standard, if you didn't do anything weird to your PSP, then it was like I would have to put it in the C tier. If we're not talking about like jailbreaking these things or doing anything crazy, overall the PSP was a pretty finicky, expensive, easy to break handheld. And now here we are at the DS. Now this might upset some people because there was a competition between the PSP and the DS and which one was better. Of course, you had people saying, oh, the PSP is way better. I mean, just look at the graphics. But if we're all being honest here, if we're all being honest with ourselves and just being okay with being wrong, we all know that the DS is an S tier handheld. Absolutely. If you didn't get the Game Boy Advance, then boom, right there. The dual screen, the Nintendo dual screen, like, excuse me, sir? That shit was, oh, like, what? And just the games and the hardware. Now I had the original DS and then I upgraded to the DS Lite. That's what I'm talking about right here. I think this is the DSi in this little thumbnail, but just the DS Lite. Let's just say the DS Lite. Boom, S tier, absolutely, all day long. It's hard to top a handheld like that. But the Nokia N-Gage really did try, and unfortunately it fell. Unfortunately, it fell a little short. Now, some of you might be surprised to hear that the N-Gage actually came out in like 2004 or 2005. Like, this wasn't like a 1999 thing or a 2000s thing. This was slightly before the DS, around the time the PSP. The Nokia N-Gage, dude, like the dumbest thing on the planet. I'm only giving it points for being like kind of interesting. E tier isn't isn't good, but I'm giving it a little points for just, I don't know, at least being a little bit more original than the Ouya. Original Xbox. We're gonna put it in the C tier. I mean, it just, there was a lot of good games for it, but you look at the timeline of it, the 360 came out, what, like 4 years after this? I might even put it below, but it did bring us Xbox Live. It was a powerful console at the time. It brought us Halo 2. I mean, yeah, we gotta keep it in the C tier. The Gamecube, I think, is a B tier. There's so many franchises that started on the Gamecube versus the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch. Like they're kind of just using like what they know. Early 2000s Nintendo was knocking it out of the park. The PS2, well, that's an easy S tier. The PS2 is perhaps the greatest console of all time, and there's not much else to say about that. It was a place to watch movies. It was a place to play the best games of the generation. Not much more to say. I don't think anyone would argue with PS2 being S tier. So we're gonna leave it there. The Game Boy Advance. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I think that's fair. I think that it didn't reach the heights of the DS, but I think it's on par with the 3DS in terms of, gosh, there's just so many great games for the GBA. Like, ooh. This next one, the Dreamcast, I'm not super familiar with, but I know that it was the home of many fantastic new games such as Soul Calibur and Shenmue, but I'm gonna leave it on the C tier just because it was overall a failure. It was kind of like the Wii U, where it came out in like this weird in-between time. It came out before the big generational leap, but it came out well after the last ones, and it was just this weird thing that kind of got destroyed with the PS2. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about the Dreamcast. I don't have too much experience with it, but I know a lot of people love it. But I am just gonna put it in the C tier just because I don't think it deserves to be in the same tier as like the GameCube and the Switch and all that. The Game Boy Color. This one's tough because the Game Boy Color is fantastic, but I don't know. I don't think it really like wowed anyone at the time. And a lot of the games that were coming out around this time were like not actually Game Boy Color exclusive games. You could put it in both. It wasn't really a necessary thing, and it didn't increase the power of the already pretty old Game Boy. The Nintendo 64. This is a tough one. If I wasn't in trouble before, I would be in huge trouble now. If I put the GameCube in B tier, then I have to put the Nintendo 64 in B tier. I know, some people, this is their favorite, this is their entire childhood. Like they would put this in S tier and they'd be like, oh, this is such amazing games. Oh, it was the best. Dude, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64. But this was really like when Nintendo, the GameCube and the 64, like this was Nintendo with essentially zero third-party support. The only games that were worth playing on those consoles were, not the only, but you know what I'm saying. Like the main games were the exclusive games. The PS1. Ooh, I'm tempted to put it in the A tier, but then people would get really mad at me. But boy, oh boy, if you look back on the PS1 catalog, oh yeah, okay, this is A tier. Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, Tekken 3, Symphony of the Night, the first like 3 Resident Evil games, Final Fantasy IX, Gran Turismo, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, FF Tactics, Parappa, yeah. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, yeah. Silent Hill, yeah. Tomb Raider, and of course Grand Theft Auto. I think it's safe to put I think it's safe to put the PS1 in the A tier. If you look up Nintendo 64 games, we're gonna get all these like childhood classics. And that's fine. That's fine. But if you'll notice, all of these all of these are Nintendo games. I threw this one in here because, again, I wanted to be funny, but yeah, we'll put the Virtual Boy in the E tier, even though even though everyone involved in it should be ashamed of themselves. I do think I'm gonna give him points again for being like kind of original. It's just this really weird thing that like should never have been made. They sold like 7 of them. We're just gonna always remember it. That's how bad it was. But I think being forgettable like the Ouya is worthy of F tier. Being really weird and like what? That's E tier right there. The Virtual Boy. All right, we're getting down to the end of the list here. We got 4 more to go, starting with the Super Nintendo. Oh baby, it is that's really tough. I think it might be fair to put it in the S tier. Again, it kind of has an advantage because it's just kind of like you read about all these inventions and like how so many original movies came out in the 80s and now everything's just remixed. It's like, yeah, they took all the good ideas. It wasn't that hard back in the day to be original because it was the start of all mediums. So this is where a lot of video game franchises got their starts, obviously, because video games were just starting. So yeah, of course. But the influence of the Super Nintendo was huge, and it had every type of game on it that you could ever want. It was a pretty packed system, and I feel comfortable putting in the S tier. Yeah, I guess I'm alright with that. The Genesis. Ooh, this might surprise some of y'all. Nah, I can't. All right, I'm gonna put the Genesis in the B tier. I know the the Genesis does what the Nintendo don't or whatever, but I grew up playing Genesis, so I know. I appreciate the Genesis, but they really went in some odd directions with the the CD and the 32X and all of that stuff. I don't know. People are probably gonna cancel me over this one. I'm canceled. That's it. I'm done for. The Genesis crowd, their pitchforks are raised. I'm gonna be thrown out of the internet for putting it on the B tier, but I'm gonna put it on the B tier. The Game Boy. I think we might have another B. I don't know about this one. This is tough because then now you're really getting into like influence. Like, of course, the Game Boy was incredible for its time. Does it have a lot of games that like I would actually want to play nowadays? Not really. But was it incredible for its time? And looking back on it, is it super innovative and amazing? Yeah, of course. Is it on par with the Game Boy Advance though? I don't know. But I think B tier is fair for the Game Boy. And of course, the Nintendo Entertainment System, where so many great franchises got their start. I'm just gonna have to put it in the A tier so I don't get murdered in my sleep. I think the NES, it was just so influential, and it actually did have a lot of great games, and it brought games back from the dead essentially after the crash. I don't know, you know, you got Mario, you got Zelda, you got Metroid, you got all sorts of crap. I think that's a pretty solid list. Again, I told you it would be top heavy. I wasn't lying, but I think that's a pretty good spread. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure you've already commented 16 times already saying, "You freaking moron. You absolute buffoon. How could you place X in Y? How is the PS3 an A tier and the 360 is also an A tier. I know that's like flooding your mind right now. These sorts of comments. How is the PSP a C tier and the PS Vita a B tier? How is the PS Vita not an S tier? I know, I've seen these comments a million times. I get it. It's hard to watch someone else's opinion and not be able to insert yours right in there, just slip it right in there. But you can do that in the comments. It's a power that you have, and everyone will see it. Your comment will probably be seen more than the contents of this video. And if you skipped to the end of this video just to see what my tier list would be and to move on with your life, there it is. Go back and watch the video, and then comment, and then watch it again and comment and send it to your friends and say, look at this moron. Look at his tier list. Mine is so much better. Do all of those things, and then come back, subscribe, comment again, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.